It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. President Zelenskyy challenges Vladimir Putin to join him for ceasefire talks in Turkey on Thursday after the Russian leader suggests both sides meet in Istanbul. Hamas says the last living American hostage in Gaza, Aidan Alexander, will be released as part of ceasefire talks with the United States. U.S. negotiators say there's been substantial progress in trade talks with China, with more details to be released tomorrow. The Home Secretary announces a crackdown on care workers who come to the UK from abroad as a way of tackling the net migration crisis. Addenbrooke's Hospital accused of covering up concerns about a suspended surgeon. Now police say they're reviewing information they've received. At the TV BAFTAs, Danny Dyer wins an award for his role in the Sky comedy series, Mr. Big Stuff. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. Tonight, the Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenskyy has challenged President Putin to meet him in person in Turkey this week for direct talks aimed at ending the war. The Russian leader suggested both sides should meet for ceasefire talks in Istanbul on Thursday. President Zelenskyy said this evening that he would be in Turkey on Thursday waiting for Mr. Putin. Our international affairs editor Dominic Waghorn reports now from Kyiv.
It's like a game of poker where the stakes could not be higher. Russia's Vladimir Putin took to the early hours to play his hand, rejecting an unconditional ceasefire, proposing direct talks instead.
Despite everything, we propose the Kyiv authorities resume the negotiations they interrupted at the end of 2022, to resume direct negotiations, and I emphasize, without any preconditions.
He was responding to an opening gambit from Britain, France, Germany, Poland and Ukraine, who thought they had Putin where they wanted, cornered by their demands for a ceasefire with, they thought, Donald Trump's backing. Till the US president made his move, taking sides with Putin, saying Ukraine should submit to talks as proposed by the Russian leader. Ukraine should agree to this immediately, he posted. Then I'm starting to doubt that Ukraine will make a deal with Putin. All eyes were then on Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who dramatically tonight raised the stakes again.
I will be in Turkey this Thursday, May the 15th, and I expect Putin to come to Turkey as well, personally. And I hope that this time Putin won't be looking for excuses as to why he can't make it. We are ready to talk to end this war.
What's not clear is will Zelenskyy go to Turkey without a ceasefire, which still appears nowhere near happening. But the pace of diplomacy is undoubtedly accelerating.
Thanks to the Allies' initiative here in Kyiv and Vladimir Putin's response, a diplomatic scramble is now underway, exploring the possibility of the first high-level, direct talks between Russia and Ukraine in more than 3 years, if a ceasefire can take hold first. And that is still a very big if.
At the memorial to the fallen that has sprung up in Kyiv's Independence Square, a stark reminder of what is at stake. Ukrainians we spoke to here welcomed progress, but remained sceptical.
It's now bad. They have a communication. It's very bad. But we cannot, it's not true, maybe. I speak about Russia. We don't trust Russia.
Danilo was in Kyiv to join the army today. He doesn't have much hope, he says, in Russian talk of negotiations.
To be honest, I don't believe in any way Russians will try to make it a peace, because for them it is easier to attack, to keep this pushing. Honestly, after all these years, I don't believe any word they say.
They've seen too many false dawns and heard too many hollow Russian promises to allow themselves to hope too much in the prospects of peace. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News, Kyiv.
To developments in the Middle East now. And Hamas has said tonight that it will release the last living American hostage in Gaza as part of ceasefire talks with the United States and others. Hamas said releasing Edan Alexander, who is an Israeli American, was part of efforts to achieve a ceasefire and allow humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. U.S. officials said it was a positive step forward and called for the release of the bodies of 4 American hostages who have died. Tonight, Donald Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff is traveling to Israel to secure the release of Mr. Alexander. Well, President Trump is due to visit the Middle East later this week, including Saudi Arabia. And our U.S. correspondent Mark Stone is in the Saudi capital, Riyadh, for us tonight. Mark, this announcement of the release of an American hostage coming just on the eve of Donald Trump's arrival in the region.
Yeah, hugely significant, and it's worth taking a step back and looking at the remarkable flurry of news just over the past 6 or 7 hours, from the point at which we took off for Riyadh about 7 hours ago to the point where we landed here. So much had happened. You've heard about that, the developments from Dominic there in terms of Ukraine and Russia. The common denominator running through all of this, whether it be Ukraine, Russia, whether it be the potential release of this hostage and renewed ceasefire talks, is Donald Trump. And more as well in a moment on the talks with China, trade talks with China as well. But in terms of this potential release of Edan Alexander, this is massively significant. Remember that the talks, the negotiations between Hamas and Qatar, the intermediary, and Israel, the United States, Egypt, they had come to nothing. They had stalled completely. Israel was preparing to move into Gaza as well in a second wave, military wave, which would effectively, they said, occupy Gaza. And then this intervention. And what's really striking and remarkable about it is that the Israelis appear to have had nothing to do with it. Steve Witkoff, Donald Trump's negotiator-in-chief, appears to have been talking not directly with Hamas, but through Qatar and others with Hamas to secure the release of this man. It will happen, Mr. Witkoff says, tomorrow or perhaps Tuesday. This is, after all, a war zone, he said, but it is massively significant. And as I say, it comes in a week where Donald Trump is trying to show the world that he can make a difference in so many different arenas, whether it be the war in Ukraine or indeed the war in Gaza.
I mean, you mentioned all those arenas. You also mentioned those trade talks between China and the U.S., and we're hearing of possible substantial progress. What else do we know?
Yeah, Scott Bessent, who is the Treasury Secretary, has been in Geneva, Switzerland, talking to his Chinese counterpart. That in itself was a surprise. Just a few days ago, there was no prospect of those two countries talking to each other, given that it was the United States that imposed these massive, massive tariffs on China, invoking this extraordinary trade war. Well, they have been talking today, and after just one day of talks, a press release came out from the American side, and that was titled the title of it was "A Trade Deal Has Been Announced." Now, the detail is a little bit more woolly. We'll get more of it tomorrow. But have a look, listen to Scott Bessent speaking after those talks.
I'm happy to report that we made substantial progress between the United States and China in these very important trade talks. First, I want to thank our Swiss host. The Swiss government has been very kind in providing us this wonderful venue, and I think that led to a great deal of the productivity we've seen. We will be giving details tomorrow.
So watch for that. I mean, that would be significant if they've managed to come to some sort of an agreement there. So much happening. The Chinese have responded to that. The Vice Premier of China saying that the meeting had achieved substantial progress and reached important consensus. The two sides agreed on establishing a mechanism for trade and economic issues. So significant there. I think we can, given what we've seen over the course of the past few hours, we can can expect this coming week with President Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia, to Qatar, to the United Arab Emirates. Who knows where else he might end up this week, given how fast things are moving. It will be significant indeed. And just to leave you with what can only be described as a bit of a teaser, Donald Trump has posted on Truth Social in the last hour or so, my next truth, my next post, that means, will be one of the most important and impactful I have ever issued. Enjoy. So he is keeping the world on tenterhooks.
And we are keeping an eye on his Truth Social account. Mark Stone with the latest for us from the Saudi capital, Riyadh. Mark, for the moment, thank you. Now, care workers will no longer be recruited from abroad under new plans to significantly bring down net migration. Care England, a charity which represents independent care services, called the plans a crushing blow to an already fragile sector. Well, bringing down migration numbers has long been a thorn in the side of successive governments and one of the key factors behind reform's success in the local elections earlier this month. Let's take a closer look at what the government wants to solve. Well, this chart shows the net migration numbers for the UK over the last 7 years. That's the difference between the number of people leaving the country and the number coming in. Migration rose steeply and reached its peak in the year to June 2023, with net migration at more than 900,000 people. It's come down from that in the most recent year, at 728,000 in the 12 months to June 2024. To help bring the numbers down, ministers are rolling out some big changes. In future, you'll need a degree-level qualification to have access to skilled worker visas. Employers will be told that they must train UK workers rather than turning to people from abroad to fill job vacancies. Tougher requirements for English language skills are being considered. And care homes will no longer be able to hire overseas staff in a crackdown on lower-skilled foreign workers. Sky's People and Politics correspondent Nick Martin has this report.
On its own, number 9.
Elena Christa from Romania has been a carer in the UK for the last 9 years. But under government plans, foreign carers like her would be prevented from coming to work here.
I would probably feel a bit sad, to be fair. I like working in the care sector because I interact with people. I learned and hear all kind of life stories. I learn how basically to look after the elderly.
Ali George runs this 28-bed care home in Cardiff. He relies on carers like Eleanor to help provide the support his residents need. And he says he struggles to find British workers to do the job.
Whilst social care is one of the most diverse sectors in Britain, it's become reliant now on overseas workers coming in to fill these gaps, with more people leaving the sector than they are coming in. And it's still extraordinarily hard to recruit new people, younger people, into care. I think social care is being absolutely left behind by the people who are actually in charge of running it.
The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, says the government is introducing sweeping changes to immigration policy and claim these new plans to tackle immigration will see 50,000 fewer visas issued this year alone.
We are very clear we need to bring net migration substantially down. It is currently falling, but we need to go much further. That's what the plan is about. It's about restoring control and order. It's about preventing this chaotic system where we had overseas recruitment soar while training in the UK was cut.
Immigration has been a headache for successive governments who've battled in vain to reduce net migration, which quadrupled under the Conservatives.
The last government made some very serious mistakes with immigration. They allowed it to be far, far too high. So let me start with just a very honest acknowledgement of that fact.
So Boris Johnson's record number, 900,000 net migration, that was
a mistake. That was a huge mistake, and that should not have been allowed to happen.
The government will publish detailed plans on immigration reform on Monday, including stricter rules on who can come here to live and work. But critics say the plans don't go far enough.
The quantity of removals is, frankly, a drop in the ocean. The way to get our economy going is to freeze immigration, get wages up for British workers, train our own people, get our own people who are economically inactive back into work. We've got 9 million people economically inactive in this country.
7 and 4, 74.
For social care, the tighter recruitment rules could put this struggling sector under even more pressure. Care England, which represents thousands of providers, has described the government's plans as a crushing blow, impacting those who provide care and those who need it. Nick Martin, Sky News.
One of the country's leading hospitals has been accused of covering up concerns about a surgeon for nearly a decade. Kuldeep Store was suspended from Addenbrooke's Hospital in January this year after a review found issues with some of her surgeries. It's now reviewing the care of 800 patients. A joint investigation by Sky News and the Sunday Times found the trust downplayed previous concerns after a 2016 report identified issues with her work. Our health correspondent Laura Bundock reports.
He is in agony, constant agony. How his feet are to have to live with that daily, it's not fair to him.
7-year-old Oliver was born with a severe foot deformity, and it's getting worse. When his consultant decided not to operate, his mum made a formal complaint.
I know, and I've been told that if she had done something sooner, or even attempted to do something sooner, then he probably would have stood a bit better chance than what he's currently going through. I'm upset, I'm angry, because I do believe that if I was listened to at the beginning, that he would be in a better position now.
Oliver was seen in 2018 by Kuldeep Store, a specialist paediatric surgeon at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge. She was suspended this year after a review identified issues with some of her surgeries. But could the hospital trust have acted sooner? Concerns were first raised about Ms. Store 10 years ago, leading to an investigation in 2016. Staff have told Sky News they were bullied and intimidated when they tried to raise concerns and suspect a cover-up when they were told the 2016 report raised no issues with Ms. Store's practices.
We've been given a copy of the 2016 report, and it clearly finds issues with some of Kuldeep Store's surgeries. Nearly a decade later, we found the very same concerns written about here in the report this year.
The 2016 report says cases post-surgery should have MRI and CT scans, but didn't always, and flags some issues with pelvic osteotomies, complex operations where the bone is cut. The report this year questions the technical performance of the same surgery and finds the lack of imaging inexplicable. It's acknowledged many of the surgeries were difficult procedures, with wider divisions in the paediatric orthopaedic department also highlighted. 800 of Store's patients, mostly young children, are having their cases urgently reviewed. A lawyer representing some of them finds the two reports troubling.
When you look at them and compare the two, there are clearly things have got so much worse in 2025. So the question, therefore, is what could have been done in 2016 to have prevented this from happening?
When I do get pain, it kind of goes up to almost my heel, really.
Elise was operated on by Ms. Store in 2016, the year of the first external review.
Had obviously that report been acted on, then you know that the outcome could potentially have been different, and the problems that I'm suffering still to this day would potentially not be there. It stresses me out, actually, to think that there was a chance for change, but change didn't happen.
In a statement, Cambridge University Hospital said, "We apologise unreservedly to all the patients and families we have let down. We have commissioned Verita, a specialist investigations company, to carry out an independent investigation into what was known when about the practice of Ms. Kuldeep Store and whether there were opportunities to have identified and addressed these issues sooner." Ms. Store told Sky News, "I always strive to provide the highest standards of care to all my patients. I'm cooperating fully with the Trust investigation, and it would not be appropriate to comment further at this time."
Good boy. Yes, you are.
Patients are angry and anxious, worried warnings were missed, and they're left living with the consequences. Laura Bundock, Sky News, Cambridge.
Well, in a statement, a family spokesperson for the patients affected said, We now appear to have clear evidence that senior leaders at Cambridge University Hospital's NHS Foundation Trust covered up an external 2016 report which raised serious concerns about the clinical practice of paediatric orthopaedic surgeon Kuldeep Store. The Trust's response was to say that the report raised no concerns. At best, that was a gross distortion of the truth, but the family strongly believe that it was a lie and a cover-up of the truth. And tonight, a spokesperson for Cambridgeshire Police told us that it had received an online report in relation to this matter today, and was now in the process of reviewing the information. Some of the country's biggest TV stars have been gathering in London tonight for the annual BAFTA Television Awards. Among the winners were the TV dramas Mr. Bates versus the Post Office and Baby Reindeer. Danny Dyer won the award for Best Male Performance in a Comedy for his performance in Sky's Mr. Big Stuff. Our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer joins me now. Katie, it's always an amazing evening, isn't it?
One can only imagine what Danny Dyer is getting up to now. You might just be able to see the lights behind me of the party that's getting underway, and you can just about make out the music as well. But look, there's lots of cause for celebration tonight, particularly in terms of homegrown storytelling and the significant impact that a couple of dramas really have had within the last year now, and also in terms of public service broadcasters getting the recognition that they deserve. Leading the field, the BBC and ITV tonight. The BBC for Mr. Loverman, starring Lenny James, the adaptation of the Bernardino Evaristo novel. But for ITV, really, there was only one story that everyone has been talking about tonight. Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, finally getting the recognition that it deserves. It is a drama that had such an impact. It continues to have such an impact in terms of making everyone aware of that scandal and prompting legislative change in itself as well. And tonight really has dominated the ceremony. Here's how the night unfolded.
The BAFTA goes to Mr. Bates versus the Post Office.
It was a drama that opened the public's eyes to one of the widest miscarriages of justice in legal history.
Thank you. We'd like to put on record that being trusted by the sub-postmasters to tell their story has been the greatest privilege of our lives. Thank you.
The computer system Post Office spent an arm and a leg on is faulty.
No one else has ever reported any problems with Horizon.
Mr. Bates versus the Post Office, the story of the wrongful prosecution of hundreds of sub-postmasters, dominating the conversation at this year's TV BAFTAs.
Long after the end credits of the ITV headline-making show aired, the drama could play out next in court, as the man at the centre of this all gears up for what could be Mr. Bates versus the government.
Such is the delay for compensation that Sir Alan Bates, ahead of the ceremony, discussing the possibility of reluctantly bringing legal action against the government.
There are options to speed this all up if they will bother to do it. Quite simply, they could bring in someone to actually take control of it and just drive it through.
As for the night's other winners, sadly for Baby Reindeer's Richard Gadd, no BAFTA on his birthday, but a win for his co-star.
Force Richard for everything. You changed my life with Baby Reindeer, and happy birthday, nipple.
From Gavin and Stacey's Ruth Jones, a rather fitting response to her win.
I'm not going to lie, this is immense. I wasn't expecting to win this, no way.
Danny Dyer, Mr. Big Stuff.
Ditto Danny Dyer's reaction to picking up his first ever BAFTA for Sky's Mr. Big Stuff.
Oh, what a touch. Comedy performance. It's like my acting was so bad, it was funny.
Receiving this year's fellowship and a standing ovation, journalist Kirsty Walk jokingly reflecting on one of her more embarrassing moments, where she was told,
"Kirsty, your skirt is in your pants."
2 awards for the adaptation of Bernardine Evaristo's book, Mr. Loverman, while thoroughly deserving Lenny James's Best Actor win, even taking him by surprise.
It's just, I haven't prepared
anything.
The night, a celebration of powerful British storytelling at its very best.
What a night. Thank you.
Katie Spencer, Sky News.
Pope Leo XIV has appealed for an end to war in his first Sunday message to crowds in St. Peter's Square since being elected last week. The new Pope called for an authentic and lasting peace in Ukraine and a ceasefire in Gaza, with the release of all Israeli hostages. Sky's Emma Birchley reports.
A nod, a wave, acknowledgement of a cheering crowd overjoyed to greet their new Pope. He waited, but with no end to their welcome forthcoming, the new pontiff began to address the masses.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, buona domenica.
Dear brothers and sisters, happy Sunday, he said. There was no hiding the delight. This Pope Leo XIV's first Sunday blessing since being elected on Thursday, the first American to be chosen. And the faithful below in St. Peter's Square, with their sea of phones, making sure they had a permanent reminder of this special moment. There was, of course, prayer.
Resurrexit, sicut dixit.
But like his predecessor, Pope Francis, there was a message of peace too. In today's dramatic scenario of a third world war in pieces, he said, I too address the world's great powers by repeating the ever-present call, never again war.
Mai più la guerra.
He went on to call for an end to the conflict in Ukraine and for ceasefire in Gaza, with humanitarian aid delivered and hostages freed.
The people will turn to faith, and he will really put all people, migrants, everybody, number one.
It's a thrill to be here in order to pray for the Holy Father, to be with the crowd that's supporting him with our prayers.
There was a spirit of celebration in the square, of joy at a new pope, and the chance to see for themselves the man who'll lead their church in all corners of the world. Emma Birchley, Sky News.
Let's get the latest sport now from Sky Sports News.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Dowling's idea about coaches is an interesting one. 42% of Premier League first-team coaches across the last 6 seasons have been English. 56% have been British. The Premier League are also committed to coach development, launching an elite coaching plan in 2020 with a clear philosophy: better coaches lead to better players. Through that, they've supported 480 coaches and coach developers over the last 5 years. Alongside that, there's the Professional Coaching Partnership, bringing together the Premier League, FA, EFL, League Managers Association and others to offer further support for coaches. The League Managers Association, which represents managers in our top 4 divisions, told us they run a significant number of qualifications and personal development services for English coaches, all of which are oversubscribed, they say. But they admit that the football industry in this country is competitive, volatile and short-term. They say increased foreign ownership of English clubs and the purchasing power of English football mean clubs can scour the globe, and that has narrowed opportunities for home-developed coaches. The LMA say that whilst all the football authorities are committed to improving the situation, it's the clubs who need to do more. They need to recognise the rich seam of talent they have on their doorstep and provide environments that allow domestic coaching to develop and flourish. One of the long-standing complaints by aspiring coaches in this country surrounds the FA courses. Too expensive, not enough places, too much prevalence given to former players. So what exactly are the qualifications that you need? Beginners start on the Introduction to Coaching Football. Around 28,000 people do this a year at a cost of £100. Next is the UEFA C licence. Between 5,500 and 6,000 places are available. That one costs £650. 750 places are available on the UEFA B licence. This costs £1,200. You can manage in League One and League Two with this qualification. The UEFA A licence costs climb to £4,000. 120 places are available on that course, and Championship managers require that particular badge. And the highest qualification is the UEFA Pro licence. You need that to manage in the Premier League. UEFA set the number of places available at just 24 a season. It costs £13,700 to do.
That's a huge financial outlay for coaches, and the FA Pro licence course is twice the price compared with Spain and Italy, but it's significantly cheaper than courses in Germany, France and the Netherlands. When places are awarded on each course every season, it causes significant debate on social media. Simon Goody has his...
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's papers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by broadcaster and author Natasha Devon and senior political correspondent at the Daily Express, Christian Kaugi. Welcome both. And among the stories, we'll be discussing this on the front of the Metro. Their headline, "I'll face Putin to get peace." We'll be right back.